Uspap page 210. Ethics rule confidentiality continued. Number 53. Verifying completion of an appraisal. Question. I have received inquiries from various companies regarding appraisals I have completed for others. Typically, I receive a letter that includes the address of a property I previously appraised, along with the effective date of my appraisal and my appraised value. The letter asks me to confirm that the information agrees with my records, and also asks me to confirm that my appraisal was performed without violating any appraiser independence requirements. Since the company requesting the information was not my client, does Uspap allow me to comply with such requests for information? Response: no. Unless you have received permission from your client, you may not communicate assignment results or confidential information, both as defined in Uspap, to this third party or any other entity that your client did not authorize. Acknowledging the fact that you performed an appraisal on a property is not prohibited by Uspap. However, in this instance, acknowledging assignment results or confidential information without permission from the client is prohibited. There are also instances where appraisers contractually agree with some clients to not disclose the fact that an appraisal was performed. In such cases, the appraiser's contractual obligation would preclude the appraiser from disclosing even the fact that an appraisal was performed. Number 54. Appraisal report received by others. Question. I was recently contacted by a lender regarding an appraisal I had performed for another client. The lender had somehow obtained a copy of my appraisal report and wanted me to answer some questions. However, this lender was not my original client and was not named as an intended user. Are there any Uspap prohibitions against discussing my appraisal with this lender? Response: yes. Uspap prohibits the appraiser from communicating assignment results or confidential information as defined in Uspap to anyone other than the client and parties specifically authorized by the client, with the exemption of those authorized by due process of law, state appraiser regulatory agencies, and a duly authorized professional peer review committee under certain conditions. Even if the lender who had contacted the appraiser was identified as an intended user in the original appraisal report, the lender is not part of the appraiser-client relationship. Therefore, authorization from the client would be needed if that lender wanted to discuss assignment results or confidential information. Barring an agreement between the appraiser and the original client, prohibiting disclosure of any information pertaining to the assignment, the appraiser may confirm that he or she performed an appraisal on the subject property and may communicate anything other than assignment results, which include the appraiser's opinions and conclusions, in addition to the value conclusion or confidential information as defined in Uspap. Number 55. Disclosure of a prior assignment. Question. As a condition of engagement, a financial institution requires that I disclose any prior appraisals I have completed on the subject property. If I disclose that I have previously appraised the subject property, am I violating Uspap? Response: disclosing the fact that you have previously appraised the property is permitted and required by Uspap as explained in the following paragraph, except in the case when an appraiser has agreed to keep the mere occurrence of a prior assignment confidential. The conduct section of the ethics rule states in part, page 211, if known prior to accepting an assignment or if discovered at any time during the assignment, an appraiser must disclose to the client and in the subsequent report certification any current or prospective interest in the subject property or parties involved, and any services regarding the subject property performed by the appraiser within the 3-year period immediately preceding acceptance of the assignment, as an appraiser or in any other capacity. Bold added for emphasis. There are some cases in which the appraiser is asked by the client not to reveal that he or she has appraised a particular property. In such cases, the fact that the appraiser previously appraised the property is confidential information. If the occurrence of a prior appraisal is confidential and disclosure of prior appraisals is a condition of a potential new assignment or a requirement of Uspap, the appraiser must decline the new assignment because the appraiser could not make the requested disclosure. Number 56, sample appraisal reports and the ethics rule. Question: I am a fee appraiser currently seeking to get on the approved list for a prospective client. In order to be considered for approval, this lender requires appraisers to provide sample appraisal reports performed within the past year. Is there any way that I can accomplish this without violating Uspap? Response: in order to provide this information, an appraiser must satisfy the confidentiality section of the ethics rule. This section states, an appraiser must protect the confidential nature of the appraiser-client relationship. An appraiser must act in good faith with regard to the legitimate interests of the client in the use of confidential information and in the communication of assignment results. An appraiser must be aware of and comply with all confidentiality and privacy laws and regulations applicable in an assignment. An appraiser must not disclose, number 1, confidential information, or 2, assignment results to anyone other than the client, party specifically authorized by the client, state appraiser regulatory agencies, third parties as may be authorized by due process of law, or a duly authorized professional peer review committee, except when such disclosure to a committee would violate applicable law or regulation. The comment further explains that if all essential elements of confidential information are removed through redaction or the process of aggregation, client authorization is not required for the disclosure of the remaining information as modified. The appraiser in this case has 3 options. Number 1, decline the request to provide the information, or number 2, obtain authorization from the client of each sample appraisal report, or 3, provide sample reports but redact all information that should not be provided to anyone other than the client, such as confidential information or assignment results.